You know, we all really take for granted how amazing it is just to eat good food. I recently had to do an all liquid diet for a day, and I really came to realize why I love my life revolving around really good food. Growing it, preparing it, eating it, it's one of the supreme pleasures of my life. It's the peak of the season, and there's so much coming in from my garden. So today I'm all about processing food. Our local dairy co-op has an overwhelming amount of milk, so I decided to try to recreate a kind of cheese I ate almost every day when I was in Nicaragua many years ago. I think it was called queso seco. It's a dry, salty cheese that Nicaraguans crumble on their gallo pinto, or beans and rice. It's delicious, and I think of it as akin to Parmesan cheese in that it's a great topping on many different dishes. So I'll be making that today, and as well I've got tomatoes and cabbage coming in too, and so in the downtime I'll be making tomato sauce and sauerkraut. This cheese is so good, I want to get in the habit of making it on a regular basis. I made it a few years ago, and it turned out exactly as I remember it. Unfortunately, didn't record any information about how I made it, so I'm gonna have to recreate the recipe. Pretty sure that last time I made it I was going off a recipe, and it told me the unique thing about it was that the curds were put through a molinero, the hand-cranked kitchen gadget that corn is put through to make masa for tortillas and tamales. Milling the curds gives the cheese a very fine grain that crumbles easily, so you don't have to grate it. The family I lived with would buy it from street vendors that would go by every morning selling their products. I have some fond memories of Nicaragua, and I really want to go back there before too long. I haven't been back in almost 30 years now, and I know it's changed a lot in many ways, but probably not much in others. You can see how this milk, because it's raw, it's not been homogenized. And so it's separated into cream and skim milk. So I gotta get that shaken up because a lot of it will stick around the top here if I don't shake it up. Oh man, this is really full. Wow. Oh well. I'll just let that heat up a little bit. It's interesting, this lid has a bunch of like super heavy cream on it. It's a little bit bitter. Up to 67. Okay, so I've heated this up. It's at about 83 now. I've got a smaller amount of milk in here that I'm heating up, and so I'm going to add that until it gets up to 90 degrees. It's reading 89.4. Each one of these is a quarter of a teaspoon per 1 to 2 gallons, so I'm just going to do half a teaspoon. Alright, on to the next project, which is to turn these pointy-headed cabbages into some sauerkraut. I've got so many of these things, and I'm going to make some egg rolls. And I made coleslaw, but like there's just so much of them right now. Good thing they store, but the problem is they don't store in my refrigerator because there's not enough space in there. So anyways, just gonna use one of my favorite kitchen tools of all time, the mandolin, to slice perfectly sliced shreds of cabbage for sauerkraut. I have nightmares about getting my fingers sliced in this thing. Hasn't happened yet. So it might not seem like it, that this would be a place to get an ingredient for sauerkraut. These are eastern red cedar berries, which I've used in sauerkraut before, and they take the place of juniper berries. So I'm gonna harvest a bunch of these. They're like in peak season. They're not exactly quite mature, but I think they'll be fine. These babies in here. Cabbage gradually gets softer and softer as the salt does its work. Draws out the moisture. I'm going to try to fit the rest of this in here even though it's full now, but it keeps on going down by a few inches every few minutes, so I think the space is going to be freed up. And as this fills up, it also, the liquid gets higher in here. It's already up to here. We want it to go above the surface of the cabbage before it starts fermentation, so that's what we're shooting for. About a minute. Mix it with water. I went to Nicaragua because I'd learned about the way the U.S. government and U.S. corporations had interfered in the lives of Nicaraguans basically forever. United Fruit, growers of tropical fruits like bananas in Nicaragua, had been supported by a U.S.-backed Nicaraguan dictator who ruled with an iron fist for decades, killing anyone who mounted an opposition against him. Killing anyone who spoke in opposition against him. People told stories of bodies washing up on the shores of Lake Nicaragua. But then, in 1979, the Sandinistas, a revolutionary movement, overthrew the dictator in a bloodless coup. They set up a communist government that began all kinds of programs to even out distribution of land and wealth, and lift up the very poor majority of the country. And of course, the US government couldn't allow that to happen. So it funded and supported militarily a group of terrorists called the Contras, who were bent on making sure that the Sandinista government couldn't succeed and hold power. They gave up power. So when I went there, things had changed from Sandinista times, but my reason for going was to see the country that I felt was the biggest victim of my country's misguided corporate foreign policy. While I lived there, I learned a lot about the way people lived, what they ate, and what they grew in their gardens. These are tomatoes I've been harvesting and freezing over the last few days. This way, if I don't have enough tomatoes to merit a full pot of tomato sauce, I can save them up without them rotting. I also find that freezing them breaks their cells and allows for quicker processing, so I don't have to cook them down as long to break the cells before putting them through the food mill. So these curds are pretty much drained of the whey. We're just going to let them sit here and knit together and expel some more whey for a little bit longer. Okay. So there's that. Got all our curds drained quite a bit. But now I'm cutting these curds and we're going to put them into a brine solution. Sit for a little while. In there. It's a lot of cheese curds. Okay, now we just got to add the brine. All right. This is actually reused brine from mozzarella, but you might want to add a little bit of salt to it because it's probably getting less salty. I'm hoping that this will not only draw more of the whey out of the curds and make the curd firmer so that we can put it through the molinero, but it's also going to make this cheese pretty salty. Okay, so I've had these cheese curds sitting in a brine overnight. Didn't really plan on having them in that long, but I think they'll be fine because this cheese is supposed to be super salty. Now it is time to put the curds through the molinero. which is going to grind them up into very fine pieces, and then we'll press the cheese. So this has been boiling down. I started out with, I don't know, I'd say maybe 3 gallons. This is down to probably less than half that. And it's gotten pretty thick. This is about the thickness that I would like my tomato sauce to be. Just let them sit here and hopefully seal up. So now it's time to check on the cheese. It's been pressing all day, most of the day anyways. Looks pretty good actually. So now I have to put it on something to dry for a while, but it seems fairly firm. It'll dry out and firm up a little even more as it sits out. Perfect. It's a good thing I don't have mice in my house. So I'm making this cucumber salad here, and I used some of the queso seco crumbled over the top. I'm gonna add some dressing to this, but this is just one of many uses of the queso seco. I do grow a lot of my own beans and corn. I grow flour corn and can make my own tortillas and tamales, so I can produce a lot of this stuff locally. And add to that the cheese, and you've got a well-rounded diet. Corn, not rice, was the more traditional complement to beans. Rice is native to Asia and was a more recent addition to the Latin American diet. I can't grow it in Missouri, so I'd rather replace it with corn, which I can grow. Thanks for joining me on another video about radical self-sufficiency. Maybe we can eventually have a revolution here in Missouri and overthrow all these fields of corn and soybeans and grow something we can actually eat. What do you think? Write a comment below and give the video a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already, and check out my Patreon, which is likely to change dramatically soon as the evil Apple Corporation is going to be charging a 30% surcharge on all Patreon subscriptions. And there will no longer be a per creation option, and we have to ask, are they really providing 30% added value to what I create to justify charging that? I think not. So I guess that will, if nothing else, spur me to start producing a lot more videos on a regular basis, so maybe it's a good thing. Thank you, heartless trillion-dollar corporation. You're really fueling creativity and innovation in our economy by making it cripplingly expensive to do business. You've made all our lives so much better. Thanks to my current patrons who hopefully won't want to rethink their support of my channel in light of the extra 30% they'll be paying to Apple so that I can be supported in producing all these videos, which Apple did absolutely nothing to make happen. See you next time. Oh, and here are a few pictures of Nicaragua. Vamos haciendo la historia.